Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're tuning in. My name is Luyanda Dube, and today we're diving into a film about one of the most iconic musicians and songwriters of all time, Bob Dylan. The documentary Bob Dylan Don't Look Back, directed by the legendary D.A. Payne Baker, captures Dylan's life on tour like never before. We'll be analyzing this groundbreaking work through the lens of Jean Hall's insightful review and reading. Before we get into the analysis, let us talk a little bit about the filmmaker and the film. So, the documentary is titled Don't Look Back. It is named to reflect Bob Dylan's forward focused outlook and somewhat defiant nature. The title also kind of hints the upcoming or the uncompromising character of Bob Dylan, who at the time was redefining music and fame without looking back. Dear Payne Baker directed this documentary. He is known for pioneering the cinema verite documentary film style. So Payne Baker's significant work include The Monetary Pop in 1968, a defining film of the 1960s music scene, and The War Room directed in 1993, which cover Bill Clinton's campaign. Don't Look Back was filmed in 1965, a pivotal time in music and culture. The counterculture movement was on the rise, civil rights activism was strong, and music was becoming a powerful force for social change. Bob Dylan was also shifting from the being a folk to a rock singer, pushing against social norms and the expectations people had on him. This is then considered a historic documentary because of its raw, unfiltered portrayal of a musician at the height of his career, focusing on Dylan's personality and the culture surrounding him rather than just his music. It's also one of the earliest examples of cinema verite in music documentaries, presenting Dylan's interactions and tensions with media, fans, and the society. So, with the analysis, as I've briefly mentioned, this film was the earliest form of its kind using cinema verite. In the reading, Jean Hall makes mention that the film starts with Bob Dylan flipping through cue cards of the song Subterranean Homesick Blues. This scene, with its random phrases, sets the tone for the film's unique style. The director uses cinema verite, a documentary style that captures real life as it happens, without narration or without interviews. This approach makes us feel like flies on the wall, observing Dylan's world directly, without any filters.
You didn't see it, did you?
What?
A cane?
Shit.
Shit, it's gone.
The film does in fact take a fly on the wall approach. Jean Hall says this is the most convenient device for Payne Baker, since the cinema verite filmmaker purports not to interview, argue, or editorialize, but simply to look and to listen, himself silent and invisible. If one watches the documentary, you can see that in all of the interviews or interactions. Take a look.
What's happening here? What are we gonna do?
How long is it since you were last in London?
About a year.
Funny.
What's your light bulb for?
What's the light bulb for?
Huh?
I thought you would ask me
Didn't
that.
work.
No, I usually carry a light bulb. Somebody gave it to me, you know.
What? Sorry, I didn't quite catch the answer.
Somebody gave it to me. A very affectionate friend.
I see.
Is a
Who, am I folk?
yeah.
No, not me. I'm not folk.
What is your real message?
My real message? Keep a good head and always carry a light bulb.
You tried it?
Well, I plugged it in my socket and the house exploded.
The whole theme of the film is to show the relationship that Bob Dylan had with the media. In various scenes, Dylan engages with journalists, sometimes playfully and other times with evident frustration. These moments showcase how complicated the relationship with the media is and his reluctance to conform to their expectations.
Would you say that you cared about people particularly? Well, yeah, but you know, I mean, we all have our own definitions of all those words.
Yeah.
Care and people
No,
and.
you can't.
Well, we surely
You're not angry in your songs. I mean, are you protesting against certain things that you're angry about?
I'm not angry.
You ever read the Bible?
Yes, sir.
No.
Have you ever read it?
Sure,
Oh, have I ever? I've glanced through it.
Because you see, a lot of the things you say.
I've glanced through it. I haven't read it.
Are you going to see the concert tonight? Are you going to hear it? Okay, you hear and see it, and it's going to happen fast. And you're not going to get it all. And you might even hear the wrong words, you know. And then afterwards, see, I won't be able to talk to you afterwards. I got nothing to say about these things I write. I mean, I just write them. I got nothing to say anything about them. I don't write them for any reason. There's no great message.
On the topic of Bob Dylan's relationship with the press, you may have noticed that he is either playful or frustrated towards the reporters. There is this one interview, or scene rather, where he actually seems to be willing to talk to the African reporter from the BBC. Jean Ho spoke about this in the reading and mentions that this is one of the very few times in the film where he is not openly condescending to or contemptuous to a reporter.
Something that will certainly interest our listeners in Africa, Bob, is your deeply humanitarian attitude to a number of public matters. For instance, you're quoted as saying, people talk about Negroes as if they were objects. Now, does this sort of compassion on your part present any problems for you in America?
Okay.
Oh, by the way, you took part in a play in Britain some time ago, written by a school friend of mine, Evelyn James.
Oh, yeah.
Ev and I went to school in Jamaica together. The Castle Street, wasn't it? The Mad
Yeah,
thing?
Madhouse.
Yes. Going ahead in about, say, 5 seconds from now, with this interview with Mr. Bob Dylan for the African Service of BBC, Pete Myers and Colin Wilde producing in approximately 5 seconds. How did it all begin for you, Bob? What actors started you off?
Notice how the filmmaker cut right before Bob Dylan answers the question, and he looked willing to answer without a fuss. I find that to be a little bit strange, considering that the documentary is supposed to explore his relationship with the media. Yet, it looks like the director, rather the filmmaker, is only showing one side of the coin, the negative side, that is. This choice reinforces the cinema verite style, highlighting the raw and fragmented feel of reality, but only offering glimpses instead of complete, structured answers. This editing decision also plays into Dylan's image as an elusive, hard-to-pin-down figure. By cutting Dylan off, the filmmaker seems to emphasize the artist's distance from the public, a sort of just out-of-reach quality. It almost feels as if the filmmaker is guiding us to see Dylan's relationship with the media as strained and one-sided, focusing on moments of ambiguity and resistance, rather than letting Dylan's full responses show another side. This approach doesn't necessarily misrepresent him, but it does seem to shape a specific narrative. And that kind of reminds us that the filmmakers, or rather Peen Baker's cinema verite style, subtly frames the story rather than laying it all out. It's only fitting to conclude the analysis with the closing scene of the film, just as I began with the opening scene. In the last scene, we see Bob Dylan in a limousine with his manager and companions after a show that he just performed. He clearly takes a jab at the media, even calling himself a vanishing American. He then pounds on the window to wave at some aesthetic fans, which contrasts with the earlier depictions of him as indifferent or hostile towards them being his fans. Dylan also expresses the feeling that he has done something special, presenting him in a completely different light compared to the rest of the film. However, his mood changes when his manager mentions that they're calling Bob Dylan an anarchist, which then kind of like dispels the magic of the moment.
The vanishing American.
Man, I feel like I've been through some kind of thing, right?
You have.
No, but I mean, there's something special about it, man.
They've started calling you an anarchist.
Who?
Papers, that's the word now.
Anarchist.
Yeah.
You're kidding. Which papers did you see
Oh,
there?
2 or 3. Today, yeah. Just because you don't offer any solution.
You're kidding.
Of course.
Anarchist.
Yeah.
Ugh. Give me a cigarette. Give the anarchist a cigarette.
The reading suggests that Don't Look Back has an agenda, if not a script, and that it is systematically critiques the dominant media, informed by a liberal view of the press's role in the contemporary democracy. I agree with the statement, or rather this idea, because it seems like the director does have an agenda he wanted to push forward, one that critiques the media of the time. However, I feel that he used a genre of film that may not have been the best choice for this purpose. To my understanding, cinema verite does not have a script and relies on minimal editing, yet the filmmaker has made some edits to steer the film into a particular direction. An example of this is when he cuts off Bob Dylan before he can calmly respond to a journalist. I believe that cinema verite, while aiming for authenticity, sometimes sacrifices the authenticity for narrative control, which makes me question the true nature of the film's truth. This is what I think of the film. I would recommend this film, especially if you're a person that is into popular culture and the media, because I feel like this film is still relevant to this day. Thank you for staying and watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Neither good nor bad, just a kid like you. Then